Spencer Oliver finishes off with Simon and myself today. Spence, you will know yesterday, and this got quite a reaction, all the talk, certainly coming from the two fighters, Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr., was that we will get it on. To be precise, on February the 3rd. It's going to happen. Ben wrote on Twitter, "I can't wait to punch you in the head." In response to that, Eubank told Ben, "You're a dead man walking." On and on it went. One small thing. Did it have the approval of the British Boxing Board of Control? This was the top man of that organisation, Robert Smith, with us yesterday.
The board feel any athlete, not just a boxer, but any athlete who has failed the drug test needs to go through an investigation. And that with the proper authorities, and that hasn't happened. We're waiting for that to happen. And the Boxing Board and UKAD have been pushing for that to happen right from the beginning of this. And unfortunately, it's been delayed, not through the Boxing Board of Control or UKAD, but through other parties. With regard to Mr. Benn boxing this country, we have had an application for him to box in this country that has been refused.
And that was that, Spencer. Yeah. That's where it's at. So Ben and Eubank have been told, not so fast. And remember, this was a fight that was prevented from happening because of not one but two failed drugs tests by Ben.
And this is the problem, Jim, that, you know, this has still not been resolved. And I think for the sake of the sport, you know, I think for the sake of the sport, it has to be resolved before Conor Benn can box on these shores again. He has to go through that procedure. You know, we know what happened, and we know that the suspension was lifted, but he was never cleared. And that was what I think that's what certain people were throwing that narrative out there, that Conor Benn's been cleared and he's cleared to fight again. He's not.
Yeah.
And he's got to go through that procedure, and I understand that. And I just think that, you know, I think for the safety and health and safety of the sport, you know, you've got young kids here that are looking, you know, they look up to these sort of fighters. We want these matters cleared before Conor Benn boxes on these shores again. So I think the Boxing Board have done the right thing there.
Yeah.
Let Conor go through that due process. I mean, Simon, where are you at with that?
The only thing I would say about the British Boxing Board of Control is that I hear the observation that the delays for the appeal, because the appeal needs to be heard and it isn't being heard apparently until January. And I hear the observation that that's something potentially on the other side of the conversation, which is not British Boxing Board of Control. Well, we'll see if that's the case. We'll also see. I wonder why the British Boxing Board of Control took 3 weeks to launch their appeal, make their appeal on the last day. So all of these things concertina down. Spencer's right, of course he's right. The idea that Conor has not accounted properly. We've had his advisors in here who came in with very strong medical evidence to suggest that they're able to refute and dispute the idea that he in fact has taken these drugs. And, you know, and the scenario with Conor is, can he fight on February the 3rd? Can the British Boxing Board of Control stop him? Because if they go to an independent commission, will an independent commission sanction the fight? Is Eddie Hearn not creating downward pressure, but basically billing a fight that he perceives will have an outcome as a result of an appeal, and notifying people that it's February the 3rd, building the fight now, but doesn't put the tickets on sale until the appeal has been heard? All of these things will play out. It'd be interesting to see if I personally perceive the British Boxing Board of Control having the ability to be able to stop a fight, even if it's an independent overseas body. If they haven't got the ability to do that, again, I ask the question.
Yeah, so I think that if they go to...
What you're saying, Simon, is it doesn't happen anywhere at this precise time.
I'm saying, well, look, you've already seen Conor Benn fight. He's fought in Florida. So you know it can happen. And people would say that ultimately you would expect cooperation between the commissions. And the fact it happened in Florida, and everybody knows that the Florida Commission is a little bit... right? So I'm not so sure it would happen in other commissions, whether it be Massachusetts or whether it be Vegas or other... or New York or part of the world. But the idea that I get the impression...
But the likelihood of that fight happening on February the 3rd here in London at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium is very unlikely, isn't it?
Well, it depends who you listen to. If you listen to certain quarters, they would suggest that they're able to overcome whatever the British Boxing Board of Control would put down on them. I think everything turns... The problem is, it doesn't matter. If Conor Benn doesn't win this appeal, then he has a handful of problems, because then he's going to be caught into a strict liability. If he wins the appeal, it's pretty much the end of the conversation with the British Boxing Board of Control, like it or not.
Right. So all hangs on that.